I'm a partner in a law firm, international law firm. And law firms are really great examples of distributed leadership because a partnership works by having a number of people who own the business. They are leaders of the area that they practice in, and those people together make decisions about the future of the firm. And something must be going right because law firms have been around for a long time, and CMS is a 1.5 billion euro business. But law firms are really traditional organisations. They are the leadership of law firms generally is male, it's white, it's middle class, and quite often they all went to the same school, or the same couple of schools. And that leads, as we know, if you don't have diversity, you can end up with groupthink. We have had empirical research that has shown that the more diverse an organisation is, the more successful it is. And so if you want your law firm or your organisation to be more successful, then you need diversity. Let's just forget about it. It's the fact that it's the right thing to do. And so women are lawyers. We've been allowed to practice law for the last 100 years, celebrated this year throughout the city and the UK. And we've got more women coming into the law. So we've got more female students studying law. Actually, it now makes up a majority of when you look at women and men studying law. And we've got more women coming into organisations. So at CMS, the majority of our junior lawyers who come in as newly qualified lawyers are women. And that's fantastic. And some people feel that that's great. And over time, it'll all change and we'll have diverse leadership at the top. In terms of statistics, we're not doing as well when you look at other aspects of diversity. So trying to get people from non-middle class privileged backgrounds into the law, trying to get people from who are not white into the law, we've got a long way to go. But the problem is that the pace of change is just really, really slow. So whilst we're getting more women at the bottom, we've still got very, very undiverse leadership at the top. And what we're seeing is that women come in at the bottom, but then there's like a cliff, there's a ceiling. How do you get more women into the partnership? What is it that we need to do to kind of make that change at the top and make that change in leadership? And I'm not saying that we have all the answers at CMS. Please don't go away thinking that we've got this problem solved. I really wish we had. If we did, I would not be doing my job anymore. I'd be doing something else. I'd be going around telling everyone else how to do it. But we are trying really hard. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a change through action. And I think that's really, really important. We're taking positive, actionable steps. We're not just saying, well, over time this will all happen. We're trying to identify exactly what we can do. And I think the approach that we're taking is threefold. We are talking the talk, we are walking the walk, and then we're using personal accountability. And that's something that is particularly important to me. So, how are we talking the talk? CMS 2 years ago underwent a merger. We merged in the UK with two other firms, Olswang and Nabarro. And it was the biggest merger in UK legal history. And as you can see, 3 is the magic number. I'm sure you've all now got that song going around your heads. I won't sing it because you don't want to hear me singing. But it was really transformational for us. And we went from 3 firms to a firm in the UK that has 450 partners. We are the 6th biggest in the UK by revenue. We are the 6th largest in the world by number of people. It's a huge organisation. And what was very interesting about the merger and about the way that I think we approached merger and our management looked at our organisation, in the UK we had one firm that was much bigger than the other 2. But rather than looking at this as a takeover by the bigger firm of the other 2, it was definitely a merger, and we looked at it as an opportunity to build a new firm. What do we want to be going forwards? It's not about what we were before. It's not about the 2 smaller firms becoming what the larger firm was, but actually, what do we want to build? It's an opportunity for us to reset our strategy. And we decided that in resetting our strategy, what we needed to do and what we wanted to do was put diversity at the heart of it and talk the talk. Tell people that one of our core values is diversity and inclusion. Because if you don't say it, then how can you be held accountable for it? So one of the first things that we did when we set our new strategy and set our values was to say, actually, one of our core values is diversity. And that for us means more than just diversity of gender and ethnicity. It also meant, interestingly, diversity in terms of culture. And if you're outside a law firm, you might think all law firms, they're all the same, aren't they? If you're inside a law firm, oh no, we're very, very different. And you had 3 firms who each considered themselves to have their own culture. And you had perhaps the more traditional conservative culture at one end and a more progressive culture, certainly, they like to think, at the other end. And what was very interesting about the way management certainly approached the merger was actually we're a broad church, and that's fine. You can be a conservative partner, and you can also have at the other end a progressive partner. And that diversity is good for us. We don't want you all to be the same. We want you to be different because your strengths lie in how you are different. It will be a better business if we have different people in our organisation. And then, of course, on top of that, you've got the traditional idea of diversity in gender and ethnicity, et cetera, et cetera. So we reset the strategy, put diversity at the heart of it, and the sort of strapline that we have in relation to our approach to diversity and inclusion, that it's driven by us, driven by CMS, or driven by one of the networks in CMS, but it's for the benefit of everyone. Because if you're doing something that's good for one group of people, actually it's probably good for another group of people as well. So if you're doing something to drive change for women, actually it's probably really good for people of a certain ethnicity, or it might be good for people of a different sexual orientation to the majority. So we also looked at our policies, and this is again about talking the talk. So what did our policies say? And one of the big mantras of the merger was that it was going to be the best of 3. So we'd look at what each of the 3 firms had in place and pick the best. But when we took the approach and looked at diversity, we decided the best of 3 wasn't good enough. We needed to be best in class. So we took the best of 3 and then we added on top of it. And as a result, as an organisation, we have some market-leading internal HR policies, which really set the tone for the organisation. So we have an agile working policy. Everybody gets a computer that is, fully agile. You can work wherever you want. Your home, the coffee shop, your clients' offices. Actually, we don't really mind. What we mind is that you do the work and that you're there for your clients. But where you are doesn't really matter. And that may sound, oh, that's kind of common sense. But for a law firm to have that kind of flexibility, that's really quite groundbreaking, actually. And then we also looked at how can we normalise time out of the office? And again, that sounds counterintuitive. Why would you want to encourage people to be out of your office? Well, part of the reason, looking at it from a diversity and inclusion perspective, is that when people look at who spends time out of the office, who takes time away from work, it is women in their early 30s who are having children. And everybody knows, it's, again, empirically proved by research that there is a maternity penalty. When women go on maternity leave, they come back, they don't progress. That's where a lot of where gender pay gaps come from. So what can we do to normalise the idea of someone being out of the office? So we have an amazing parental leave policy. You can take 6 months full pay if you're the second parent. And that has been, I think, quite transformational in how our, and particularly young men, view time out of the office. It took a couple of them to try it first, but now everybody wants to be on shared parental leave because, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you take 6 months out to spend with your new family? And what's interesting, and I think this is one of the real game changers in society, is that once you have second parents or men taking time out, when they come back in, they look at things differently because they've been there at the coalface. They've been there as the primary carer. And when they come back in again, actually, interesting, they don't revert to those kind of gender norms in the same way. So you don't have then, and we see this in our staff, you don't have those men then going, okay, well, my wife does everything at home and I do nothing and I don't ever pick up the kids. Actually, they don't do that because they've been at home for 6 months. You can't go back once you've done that. So actually they say, okay, I want to work in a flexible manner. I want to pick up my kids, 1 day a week. I want to work from home. And that doesn't change how people view that. It also changes how they interact with other people. And it's really interesting. I've worked flexibly for a long time. I have 2 small kids. And one of my partners recently had 6 months off. And he came back to work, and I chatted to him before he went off. And he talked to him about what it would be like. And he came back, and he said, this is really hard. How do you manage it? I thought, I've worked with you for, 8 years, 10 years. my eldest is 7 years old. I've been working flexibly for 7 years. You've never once asked me how I've managed it. You've never once acknowledged that actually, I have this other thing going on in my life that might make it difficult. It just hasn't been on your radar. And all of a sudden, you've been through, and you're like, actually, yeah, I see this is hard, isn't it? Oh, maybe I should give you a bit of credit for the fact that this is really hard. It's really interesting seeing that complete change in mindset of having been, in that new position. So the other thing we're doing is we've given people language to talk the talk. We've given people language to question bad behaviour. So we've got this phrase, that's not very CMS. And the idea is, and was it part of, I don't know whether it was actually as a result of Me Too, but the idea is that if you hear someone saying something that isn't right, you can say, that's not very CMS. And that phrase takes the emotion out of it. It's not accusatory. It's just actually, you're not chiming with our core values. And it's a really powerful phrase. And sometimes I hear people saying it jokingly, but sometimes I don't. And I think that's been really interesting to have that kind of label that you can say, okay, I'm going to label this behaviour. And it's really hard to label behaviour, and it's really hard, particularly if you're junior, to call people out. But by giving them the language to do it, I think that's really powerful. So I said we talk the talk. We've also got to walk the walk. And I think for us what that means is that we have to internally build a diverse pool of talent with leadership skills. Because you can't expect your leadership to become diverse if you don't have a pool of diverse people with leadership skills. Because you don't become a leader overnight. And if you do, it's a pretty rough ride. So we spend time developing the leadership skills of our junior members of staff. We do that through training. We have an amazing training program. But training's all well and good, but you actually need experience on the job. You need people to give you leadership opportunities for you to test those skills. And law firms are really, really risk averse. Lawyers are really risk averse. I mean, we get paid to be risk averse. That's what we're all about. We're all about managing risk. So we're really risk averse people, and we're also really, really hierarchical. I mean, interesting hearing about the NHS and the hierarchy. You have that absolutely in law firms. You've got the partner at the top, you've got the senior associate, the junior associate, the trainee, the paralegal, and then the secretary. I mean, that's just the way it is. And so how do you allow for leadership within that hierarchy? So one of the things that we do is we look for opportunities to give people leadership skills, and we allow them to come up with those opportunities themselves. What would you like to do? You come up with an idea and we'll support it. So one example is we've got a group of associates, so kind of mid-level members of staff, who have set up a network to connect with a similar level of people in media organisations. So it's effectively a kind of social network. But it's a risk-managed way. We're not getting our junior people trying to develop relationships with CEOs of FTSE 100 companies. These are people of a similar level, having an opportunity to build a relationship at that level, and obviously over time you hope that they both progress through their organisations, and so when they then get to be, our associates get to be partners, the people that they've made those connections with and built those relationships with will be people in positions to instruct lawyers at their relative organisations. And so that's a really kind of risk-managed way of giving those people leadership skills. They run it all themselves, partners aren't involved. We give them a budget, just go away and do whatever you want. But it gives them that kind of safe way of doing it. Another way we do that is through our startup program, which is called CMS Equip. And Passle is one of our clients and is a member of the Equip program. Equip's fantastic. It's a really, really wonderful program. What we do is we support companies on the program. We've got about 70 companies on the program now, through giving them discounted legal advice. We give them access to our network, and we give them access to our offices and to our technology, and just support them in every way that we can. And how we build leadership skills through our Equip program is we have junior members of staff across the firm who work with our Equip clients, and we ask them to manage the relationships. So for a lot of our Equip clients, we'll have someone who is a junior member of staff who is the relationship manager. Now, in a normal law firm, it is the most senior person who is the relationship manager. It's that person who does all the managing and making sure the right people are doing the right things at the right time. But with Equip clients, we actually get someone much more junior to do that. And what's great for them is that they get the opportunity to develop their skills. And it's, in a risk-managed way because, by nature of the fact that they're all startups, they're not massive accounts for us. They're really important clients, but financially, it's small. And what's great for the startups is actually partners are really unavailable. So you've got an associate who's really enthusiastic, who loves your business, and who is then you can pick up the phone to and get hold of pretty quickly. And it works really, really well. So sometimes I think you have to be strategic about how you build diversity in leadership. And one of the things that happened a few years ago, prior to the merger I haven't said which of the 3 organisations I was in, but we had an opportunity to put someone on the board. So we had a board of our law firm, and there was a space for someone on the board. And the female partners really wanted a woman on the board. There was, I think, 1 woman on the board at the time of maybe 7 or 8 people, and we thought, okay, we want another woman. We want that diversity in leadership. How are we going to make that happen? We need to be strategic about it. And so the female partners sat down and had a discussion and said, okay, there's only 1 spot. If we all put ourselves forward, because there'll be a whole load of men who put themselves forward as well, actually, what's the likelihood that we're going to get a female appointed? The decision was taken, what we need to do is we need to find 1 person. We need 1 candidate between us. And then we all need to back that 1 candidate. And that woman knows that if she gets on the board, she is the voice of all the other female partners. But let's all get behind her. And so that was the decision we took, and we took an active step, rather than just waiting to see what happened. Chose 1 woman, she put herself forward, everyone got behind her, went out and did all the, the networking and the drumming up of the support, because the whole partnership had to vote on it, and that woman got in. And I think it was a really interesting lesson in if you want to build diversity in leadership, sometimes you have to be strategic about how you do it. Actually think about it and take active steps strategically to get the result that you want. Interestingly, just recently at CMS, we had another situation where we were appointing new people to the board. And we've already got quite a big board, but we had 4 places open. And again, a slightly smaller group of women had a meeting and said, okay, it'd be really nice to have more women on the board. How are we going to go about this? What are we going to do to try and get that change? And we decided that the previous approach that we'd taken, it wasn't going to work here. And actually what we needed to do was the complete opposite. We needed to encourage as many women as possible to put themselves forward. Because again, you had the whole partnership voting on it, and you have 4 spaces. So I think we had 19 people put themselves forward, and of them half were women. And what was absolutely astounding is that all 4 spaces were filled by women, which was an absolutely amazing result, and obviously all on their own merits. Sadly, those 4 women are all white, heterosexual women, so we've still got some way to go on the diversity stakes, but we're getting there, And then the other way in which we walk the walk in terms of our approach to diversity is with our clients. So we work with clients from a corporate responsibility perspective, working with them on their own diversity programs and their inclusion programs, as well as things like working with them on a pro bono basis. And then we also look at our client base and what can we do to support diversity in our client base. And again, talking about our startup program, Equip, we have a specific campaign at the moment which I'm helping to lead, which is to try and get more female founders onto our Equip program. So our Equip program is hugely successful. As I said, we've got 70 companies on the program. It's been running for 3 years. But last year, we looked at the companies on the program, and we realized they're mostly run by men. And that broadly reflects startup world, but that isn't good enough for us. And if you think about diversity from the perspective of the more diverse the business is, the more successful it is, our startup companies are members of our Equip program. We've invested in them. We might not have given them any money, but we have invested our time. And for us, time is money. So we've got a really undiverse investment. Our portfolio is not diversified. We need to do something about that. And we could just wait and see what happened, but actually that's not what we're all about. We need to take action. And so what we've decided to do is to set up a campaign, which is called Lead Hers. And the idea is that we're actively going out and finding female-founded businesses. A lot of the businesses that come onto our program, they come to us. And that's fantastic, and it's been hugely successful to date. And as I said, we've got 70 companies on this program, and it's wonderful. But the women are not coming. And so we can't just sit here and do nothing. We need to take an active step, we need to go out, and we need to find them. And so that's our campaign, which we're running for the next 12 months to try and get some more women onto the program. And so if any of you know a female founder, or you are a female founder, or you're interested in supporting female founders, do come and talk to me afterwards, because I'm really, really passionate about this. It's really important to us, and we want to work with as many people as we can to kind of make this happen. Women are really underrepresented in startup world. They don't get as much of the investment. The more we can do to support them, the better, because that's better for us all. So I said that at the start, I said we try and talk the talk, we try and walk the walk, and then it's also about personal accountability. And this is the thing that I suppose I'm probably most passionate about, because it's not the responsibility of your CEO to try and change the diversity within your organisation. Yes, it is their responsibility, but it's not their sole responsibility. It's actually all of our responsibilities to make change if we really care about it. And every small action that you make can make a difference. If we all just do one small thing, well, together we can do something amazing. So people who manage other people, if you manage other leaders, use the power that you have to drive diversity and inclusion. And whether you choose that to be the stick or the carrot, doesn't really matter. Set objectives by reference to diversity and inclusion. Make people accountable for their own actions within their teams. Because once you say to someone, you have to do this is an objective, or you encourage them to do it, actually that's where you start to see changes in behaviour. So make people personally accountable. And find your diverse talent and sponsor them. Don't just mentor them, but sponsor them. Find opportunities for them. Support them. Find out where their skill set is lacking. Even if you just find one person and you support one person who would make a difference in terms of bringing their, with a diverse background, bringing them into the leadership, that's enough. And I think what we find certainly in law firms with our female staff, and this of course is a massive generalisation, but lawyers are all insecure overachievers, and a lot of our female lawyers are all perfectionists, and they just put their heads down and they do the work, and they think that as a result they will get noticed, and someone will then say, yes, you've done really well, we're going to make you a partner. And of course that's not what happens. If you want to be a partner in a law firm, you've got to have a book of business, you've got to develop client relationships. And so what we need to be doing is helping our junior women to spend less time working and more time developing relationships. If you take one person and you help them to develop their practice, that's going to make a change. I wouldn't be here without all the support I've been given. And when I was a senior-ish lawyer looking at partnership, there were no female partners in my team at all. So I didn't have any role models. And the female partners in the other parts of the organisation saw this and recognised this. But they had no ability to change what happened in my team. So the way that law firms work is each team puts forward who's going to be put up for partnership, and then that will go to the board and be voted on. But you've got to have your team put you forward. And the female partners in the other parts of the organisation realised, well, they're not in the team, so they can't make that choice. But they each wanted to take a step and do something to support me. And so unbeknownst to me, they sat down and had a meeting. We like lots of meetings, we do, lawyers. And they said, okay, we each need to work out what we can do personally. So let's just think about what step each of us can take. And it might be a small step, but between us, we must be able to do something. So one woman said, actually, I'm really close to the head of department. So I'm going to speak to the head of department and speak to him about whether, Katie should be put forward and what he is doing to help her. And somebody else said, well, I don't know really anyone in the team, but I actually know Katie really well, and I know that she could do with some mentorship, so I will mentor her. And somebody else said, well, I don't know Katie at all, but I hear what you're all saying, so I'm going to see what opportunities I can bring her. This is all completely unbeknownst to me, but together they decided they would each take one step to support me. And that, it's amazing, and I found out about this, a few years later, actually. But what was really interesting is they weren't trying to change the world. They were trying to change what they had control over, to do the one thing that they could do. And so taking that as an example, I've decided this year, what is the one thing I can do? And I do a lot. I'm involved in diversity at CMS. I'm on our women's committee. I work in our specific M&A group trying to support the women in our team. I do a lot of mentoring. I do lots of things. But I thought, actually, there must be something else I can do. There must be one little thing more I can do. And so I set myself a personal challenge this year. I get asked to speak at quite a few things. I run events internally. I do a lot of client events and externally. And I thought, actually, quite often I'm the only woman speaking. And, okay, what I could do is say, actually, I'm not going to speak. You should ask someone else. But that doesn't really help me. I'm all for helping other people, but I also need to help myself. Actually, instead, what I'm going to say is, this year, I will not run or speak at any event unless there is an equal number of women speaking or more. And that's actually a really powerful thing, because when somebody comes to you with an idea and says, I want to run this event, this is the lineup, I said, that's great, I'd really love to do it. I'm really sorry I can't, because you don't have enough women. You've got to go and find some more women. We've got plenty of talent. This is not a question about finding talent. Go out and try harder. You've come to me, that's great, and I would love to help you, but actually, that's the one thing I can do, because you want me, and that's the one bit of capital that I have here in this situation, is I can ask you to find somebody else. And that's been really interesting, and I have seen that has made a change, and that is getting women within our organisation more kind of airtime as a result of just that one little thing that I'm doing. As I close up, the one thing I was going to say was, I wanted to challenge all of you to think about what that one thing is that you could do. What is that one step you can take within your organisation? And it does not have to be big. It could be small. It could be just one little thing. But if each of us does one little thing, actually together, that could be really powerful.